Imagine a world where sewing opens doors to creativity and self-expression. I remember the first time I sat down at my mother's sewing machine. I didn't know it then, but it was the start of something that would shape my creativity, my confidence, and even how I see the world. Hi, I'm Robin Bird. Today I'll share how sewing can transform your life, explain why 2025 is the perfect year to start sewing, give you examples of exactly what I think you need to start sewing, and show how it's easier to begin than you think. Sewing as therapy, a personal journey of self-expression. To show you how transformative sewing can be, let me share a personal story. Many years ago, I was teaching overseas in a beautiful country. I loved my students and the local community, but behind the scenes, the head teacher of the foreign staff was turning my work life into hell. She completely ignored me and acted as if I didn't exist. The longer I worked with her, the more stressed and isolated I felt. But I had to see my contract through despite the circumstances. One day, a couple of my good friends invited me to join a craft night. So I bought a sewing machine, a pattern, and some fabric, and everything changed. Sewing quieted my mind and became a source of strength. That's when I first experienced sewing as a powerful healing art form, a gift that carries me through life today. Through a tough time, sewing gave me a sense of control. The rhythm of the stitches quieted my mind and brought me peace I didn't know I needed. This healing power of sewing is just one of the many reasons why I believe 2025 is the perfect year to start. Sewing ideas for 2025, why this is the year to begin. So why should you start sewing in 2025? First, sewing can be an artistic outlet, a form of self-expression, or even a way to create a side hustle. It's therapeutic, grounding, and offers a rewarding way to reconnect with the present moment. Sewing is more than just a hobby. It's a way to express your personality through do-it-yourself sewing projects and creating something unique that reflects who you are. It's also a great way to tap into the exciting 2025 sewing trends. Next, sewing offers a peaceful escape from the noise of technology, helping you slow down, stay mindful, and reconnect with yourself. It can be a form of sewing for stress relief and a way to combat the pressures of daily life. Sewing for beginners, benefits for mindfulness and self-care. Sewing lets you create your own clothes, repurpose materials, and reduce waste, so it's incredibly practical. It's a budget-friendly and rewarding way to express your creativity and practice sustainable fashion. With sewing, you can embrace fashion do-it-yourself, make your own pieces, and embrace the movement toward more sustainable clothing. With online resources, sewing has never been easier. It's a way to express your style and create unique pieces that reflect you. Sewing for beginners has never been more accessible, and easy sewing projects can be started with just a few tools and ideas. But sewing is more than just accessible. It's a skill that can enrich your life in ways you might not expect. Not only is sewing deeply creative, it can also be a powerful way to build confidence. It offers the opportunity to combine art, craft, and design in a way that few other hobbies can. Sewing can also be a form of self-care, allowing you to create a space for mindfulness and personal expression in sewing. Beginner sewing tips: how to get started on do-it-yourself sewing projects. So what do you need to start sewing? Really, just yourself. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't need the fanciest tools. All you need is the willingness to begin and to trust that every stitch you make is a step forward. By the way, I have a newsletter where I dive a little deeper into topics like this. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, feel free to check it out. It's linked in the description. Learning to sew, overcoming challenges, and building confidence. Speaking of learning curves, I want to share a story about a time when I doubted my own sewing skills. When I enrolled in a fashion design program at Canberra Institute of Technology, I thought I was a pro. After all, I'd been sewing since high school, and I'd become a regular regular sewist. But in class, I quickly realized there were students, both young and older, who were far more advanced. Some had formal training, industry experience, or had grown up learning more advanced techniques than I had. The pace of the program was challenging, and I often felt behind, especially with flat pattern making, which required more math skills than I was comfortable with. It was a humbling experience, and I understand how some of you might feel when watching experts online, like you can't match their level of skill. If you're just learning to sew, or even just exploring sewing machine basics, just know that this is all part of the process. It wasn't easy, but I realized something important along the way. There's a difference between sewing for the industry and home sewing. Home sewists have the advantage of focusing on slow sewing and mindfulness sewing, which is ultimately healthier and more inspirational. It's a form of sewing as therapy that can be great for mental health and self-expression through sewing. Creative sewing ideas, embrace imperfection, and find your style. And perfectionism doesn't help you. It only hinders you. I also believe that mistakes are actually gifts, not enemies. Even if we don't learn everything right away, that's okay, because the journey is what matters the most. We don't have to be fashion models. Sewing your own clothes can be about sustainable fashion and personal expression in sewing. Many of us have that old sewing machine in the closet collecting dust, just like the creativity we've tucked away, unsure if it still works. But perfectionism can hold us back. But when we let go, we find space to truly express ourselves. And there will always be someone better at this than you, but you'll always know a lot more than you actually realize, because sewing allows you to be playful and release your inner child to take risks, enjoy, and try something new and different. It's about finding your creative escape or being part of a sewing community that inspires you. So if you're nervous about starting this year in 2025, try beginning with something small, like stitching a square of fabric or taking on easy sewing projects. Even beginner sewing tips can open up a world of creative sewing ideas. Start with simple, do-it-yourself sewing projects, like making a pillow, and gradually move toward actually sewing garments. You really have nothing to lose. The worst that can happen to you is you just rip out the seams and re-sew. You'll be amazed at how those first steps can lead to so much more, including mindfulness and sewing for stress relief. Your creative escape, setting up a mindful sewing space. Once you take those first steps, it's equally important to have a space where you can nurture your creativity, because having a little sewing nook is so important. It's your creative haven, no matter how small. But here's the thing. If your space is cluttered, unsafe, or not set up in a way that supports you, everything we've talked about today could just unravel, because it can lead to frustration, and you might even feel like giving up. And we definitely don't want that. And that's why it's crucial to create a reliable, safe sewing environment you can always count on. So I created a guide to sewing safety to get you started in this video.